Hello, my name's Nowakowski, and I'm just going to give you a presentation on the rollout of renewables in Queensland. I'm doing this because there's been so many requests from affected communities around the state of Queensland, and so I hope you get something out of this. Thank you. So what are the impacts of poorly planned industrial scaled renewable projects in Queensland? And I start off here because this is where it all sort of started for me back in 2017. I documented the first industrial wind farm in Queensland, the construction of the first wind farm. And at the time, we all thought it was a great idea. This is what we need to do to decarbonise, achieve our targets, net zero. The proponents were saying this would deliver 70,000 electricity to 70,000 homes. So we thought it was a good thing, but I'll show you later on that it doesn't actually deliver that much electricity. But this is one of the turbine blades that's 57 metres long. This comes in at 12 tonne. The Sholumbin wind farm, Upper Burdekin wind farm, the new generation of wind farms that I'll be talking about, those blades are around 89 metres and 99 metres, so twice the length of this. And they come in at about 20 tonne. So this is 57 metres long, Mount Emerald Wind Farm, Sholumbin, Upper Burdekin, Moa Creek, all the other wind farms down the Great Dividing Range are twice this length. As you can see here, to get these components onto the site, they need to cut corners, lift power poles, electricity lines. It's quite a complex procedure to get these huge components into really remote areas. And this is where the Mount Emerald Wind Farm was being built at the time in 2017. This is the Mount Emerald Plateau just west of Cairns, just south of Mareeba, and it was a beautiful plateau, amazing remnant vegetation, one of the best northern quoll populations in North Queensland. No roads, 5 endangered plant species. But at the time we thought, well, that's the price we need to pay. Smash it all up for a wind farm. So as you can see here, beautiful forest, wildflower country, gorgeous, gorgeous habitat. And that site today is now an industrial complex. It's actually a material change of use. And that land now is zoned as industrial energy production. And that is what all these wind farm sites now become. It's one of the biggest land transfers, I believe, in Australian history, where vast amounts, we're talking hundreds of thousands of hectares, is being transferred to industrial energy production. So now this is an industrial site with haulage roads, transmission lines, substations. You can see that bus there below the turbine. That's a school bus to give you a sense of scale. And you have to remember that the new wind farms being proposed are basically twice as big as these. This is what was involved in the construction of the Mount Emerald Wind Farm. It's a lot easier to blast out the ridge lines than use rock breaking machinery. It's quicker. I'll just get out of that. Next slide. So I witnessed that and the brutal nature of the wind farm industry. And I thought, well, Mount Emerald Wind Farm was going to provide electricity for 70,000 homes. We're settled, we're done here in North Queensland. But then shortly afterwards, I heard about the Caban wind farm just to the south. And there was just a newly discovered frog there that was really unknown, called the magnificent brood frog. So I went there to try to document it before the dozers got in, but I was too late. The dozers got in there first. And as you can see here, that's the swathe of forest that was initially cleared for the haulage roads. A lot more of that country has been cleared subsequently. Got the drone up in the sky, up in the air, and documented these dozers working, pushing down the forest, and it's beautiful, wonderful forest. High altitude areas. Yeah, so I just missed the dozers operating in this higher area, but I got the dozers working in the lower area. Big swathes cut through the forest to make way for a renewable energy project. And the one thing we should be doing is keeping trees in the ground if we want to combat climate change. It's just crazy, absolutely insane. Yeah, so you can see here the swathe of land cleared. Tops of the ridge lines, that's when they just went in there to start clearing. They actually did kill a northern quoll in the construction of this particular wind farm. It's come out in the environment reports. You have to remember that these high elevation areas, they're the refugee areas for climate change, you know, and we're smashing them up. Also too, this Mount Emerald wind farm, this is a small wind farm. This is only 28 wind turbines. Shalumbin's 94, Upper Burdekin's 100, Mount Fox 55. So this is just one of many. And we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of turbines, and this is a small one really compared to all the other wind farms proposed down the coastal ranges. Yeah, so you can see here, no sediment control, no erosion control. Just cut the top off the top of the ridge line. There's 1,200 cubic metres of reinforced concrete going into those foundations. The site can never be rehabilitated. It'll always be a quarry site. You know, and these turbines only last 20 to 25 years max, and they need to be decommissioned. So these are very short-lived pieces of infrastructure. You can see the huge amounts of civil engineering going into the roads. Yeah, and we can see here all the roads being punched through the forest, and it's not necessarily the clearing of forest, but it's also the fragmentation. Hundreds of kilometres of brand new roads being pushed through, and then we get edge effects occurring, and weed incursions, altered fire regimes. This forest will never be the same. It's completely stuffed. And this is happening on a massive scale across Queensland. So you can see the amount of clearing, you know, and that's to go to get those big big components into the site. So you can see the wind blades there, the turbine blades. They're basically twice as long as the Mount Emerald blades that you saw in the earlier photographs. Yeah, so massive and heavy pieces of equipment. So you can see there's some protesters there in that left photograph and the right photograph to show you the scale. Yeah, this sort of shows you the scale of the site. Chris Bowen went to the last election saying we need to build one of these turbines every 10 hours until 2035 to meet our targets. So one turbine needs to be erected every 10 hours until the year 2035. Complete delusion. Something else that isn't discussed is the lights. These turbines have lights on them because they're aviation hazards. The turbines are 275 metres high. And so for people living in these areas, they're now living in an industrial area. They've got to look out at lights at night. And not only that, but we've got lights in remote forested areas. And these lights attract insects, microbats and bats. And none of the science has been done on this, on how many bats are going to get killed chasing insects close to these turbines at night. And then when I was there documenting the Caban wind farm, a local mentioned the word Shulumban, and I'd never heard of the word before. So I went home, did a Google search, and then found that there's this massive wind farm just south of Caban with 94 turbines in the most beautiful wet sclerophyll forest you'll ever see in your life. Hard up against the Wet Tropics World Heritage Area on the western boundary. What you're seeing there is the country that is about to get carved up into haulage roads and turbines. Absolute insanity. On this photograph here, on the left-hand side is the World Heritage Area. On the right-hand side is Wooroora Station, and that is where the wind turbines are going, on the right-hand side of this photograph. The proponents, all the proponents are dodgy. They're all multinational companies. This one here is Arc Energy. The Caban project was Neoen, which is a French company. Mount Emerald Wind Farm, Ratch, is a Thai company. And this company for Shulumban is Arc Energy, which is a Korean company. And you can see the footprint here, and they generally just initially show the community the tracks and where the turbines are going. And I like how they mention, or they label the tracks as just access tracks when they're actually huge, big, massive haulage roads that have to be engineered up very steep inclines. So we do our mapping here at Rainforest Reserves Australia, and we do our own digitising in, and then all the vegetation overlays and regional ecosystem overlays. So what we can see here is the Shulumban Wind Farm site, the project, and they're the haulage roads and the turbines, and you can see that it's hard up against the green area, which is the World Heritage Area. And then when we do an overlay over the topographic data, we can see that these turbines are up on the very high escarpments, the really steep areas, which means that the civil engineering is just massive to push roads up into these high elevation areas. So like I said before, you know, these 89 metre long turbine blades at 20 tonne each need to get up these really steep slopes. The nacelle, the centre gearbox, they're around 400 tonne in weight. So they need to get up into these really remote areas. When we do another overlay showing the elevation height, we can see that that yellow area is 800 to 900 metres elevation, nearly going into the 900 metres, 900 to 1000 metre elevation contour range. Just incredible, you know. So the actual entry road there is coming in at below 600 metres. So there's an elevation gain of 300 to 400 metres that those components need to go up into the mountains. And then when we do the biodiversity overlay, we can see that the turbines and roads are going into actually endangered vegetation, wet sclerophyll forest. It should never have got to this stage. It should have been knocked back in the planning stages. Complete craziness. And this is the type of forest that the haulage roads will be going through. Classic wet sclerophyll forest, that transition area between the rainforest of the World Heritage Area down to the dry eucalypt in the lower country. So it got me thinking, well, what's next? You know, I've stumbled across Caban, stumbled across Shillumbin, and then by delving into the EPBC web portal and proponents' websites, because you don't find this at a local council level because they're all code accessible. They go straight through as code accessible, not impact accessible. So even the residents in the local areas don't even know about these projects. At state level, state code, they go straight through, basically exempt from all the legislation, State Code 23. And it's only if there's a vulnerable or endangered plant species or animal species that it triggers the EPBC Act, and then we find out about it. So anyway, just in North Queensland, between Ingham to Lakeland, these are the projects in the pipeline. The green ones are completed, white's proposed, orange. The orange ones I'm going to talk about next. Total area to be cleared of remnant vegetation, 14,000 hectares. So then I started looking into some of these projects. So we look at the Kidston pumped hydro, for example, and we hear a lot of politicians and green advocates going, oh, Kidston pumped hydro is fantastic. It's the utilisation of two gold mining pits to pump water up between to generate electricity, and then the solar farm actually goes over the quarry pit, over the tailings dam actually, and on the face of it, it looks okay. You know, this is actually quite a good renewable project, but you have to remember that this is stage one. Stage two involves clearing 1,900 hectares of Thermida woodland for a solar park. And then we've just found out a couple of weeks ago that stage 3 is a huge wind farm up near Forsyth, which will be clearing koala habitat. Complete madness, absolute insanity. And this is the sort of forest that's going to get cleared for the solar park. And then I looked at the Upper Burdekin wind farm, and this is just a monster, 100 turbines. And then we just found out about another wind farm called Karma Wind Farm, and basically all those hills there in the distance, that's Karma Wind Farm. That's all going to get covered in turbines. And this is the Mount Fox crater in the foreground. That's natural, hasn't been cleared of trees. That's how it is naturally. And all that country in the distance will be the Mount Fox, the Upper Burdekin wind farm. All the area to the east behind this photograph will be the Mount Fox wind farm. So we're looking at 100, 200, about 200, 200 to 250 turbines here. All that country that you see there, turbines. And on this site, it's absolutely biodiverse, incredible diversity. Sharman's rock wallabies and koalas. I've been there twice, and the koalas, I've seen koalas on both occasions, both times when I've visited. Sharman rock wallabies, you'll see them. You go there at dawn and dusk, you'll see them even in the daytime, and you walk up over the rocky boulder fields, you'll see them. Wedgetails, rufous bedongs at night. The place is just alive. It should not be carved up and industrialised. There's rock art in the area. There's 3 gorge systems. It's just fucking madness. So again, we did the mapping for Upper Burdekin, and you can see the footprint of the Upper Burdekin wind farm in relation to the Wet Tropics World Heritage Area. And then if you do an overlay of the wind farm over the city of Cairns, you can then see the scale. So basically from Palm Cove all the way over to Yarrabah is the size of this project. It's huge. You're looking at around 200 kilometres of haulage roads. This is where the Sharman rock wallabies live, in these granite boulders, and these will just be blasted out. The thing that really hurts is that the Upper Burdekin wind farm, that site was actually earmarked for National Park acquisition because of its high biodiversity. Waroona was purchased in 2010, Oak Hills in 2016, and the Upper Burdekin site was next in line. So why is it happening here? Why have we got these big industrial wind farms happening in the best high biodiverse areas? And it's all about the transmission lines. And if we look here in Queensland, North Queensland, you can see the red lines are the transmission, the high voltage 275 kV transmission lines. And if we do the overlays, we can see there in red, that's Mount Emerald Wind Farm, Caban Wind Farm, Desailly Solar Park, which is on the Cooktown line. I haven't got it mapped there, unfortunately. The Sholumbin Wind Farm, the Upper Burdekin Wind Farm, and then we've got the Mount Fox Energy Park. So you can see a pattern here where they're hugging the transmission lines. For these wind farms to be away from the transmission lines, you're looking at millions and millions of dollars per kilometre, depending on the tenure, the geography, the terrain, the geology. So after doing that, I thought, well, what's happening across the entire state of Queensland? And then I did this spreadsheet. Now this spreadsheet is already out of date. Like I said, we've already identified a few more projects that have come online in the last few weeks. There's basically a new project coming online or being proposed every week. So I'd estimate we're up to about 95 projects now. So if you look at the spatial footprint over Queensland, that's all of Queensland. Those green polygons are wind farms where I don't know where the haulage roads are actually mapped. That hasn't been revealed yet, but they're the property extents of those wind farms. And if we just look at this area here between Gladstone and Rockhampton, we can zoom in and you can see how massive the scale is. So just in this area here, we've got wind farms on every ridge line outside of the protected areas of national park and state forest. So every single high elevation area is going to be impacted upon by wind farms. And in actual fact, in the Banana Shire, west of Rockhampton, there's 27 wind farms and solar farms proposed. So if we do another overlay like we did for North Queensland, for that central Queensland area between Gladstone and Rockhampton, we can see here the 275 kV lines, they're black lines. And we can see Clark Creek Wind Farm, Lotus Creek Wind Farm, Boulder Creek Wind Farm, Mount Hopeful Wind Farm. All of these are just in great country. I read the ecological report for Mount Hopeful, and that is just a disaster. There's yellow belly gliders there, northern quolls. There's northern quolls in there, and it's going to get smashed to smithereens. Boomer Range, Moa Creek Wind Farm. Just found out about the Moa Creek Solar Park basically just a few days ago. We've got Collide Wind Farm, Banana Range Wind Farm, Caribou Wind Farm, Smoky Creek Solar Park, and we've got Wooderson Wind Farm, Inverray Wind Farm, Moonlight Range Wind Farm. That should not be going ahead. That is the most beautiful, spectacular country you'll ever see, and it's going to get fucking smashed up. So if we start looking at each of these wind farms, I'm not going to do them all, just a couple. Clark Creek, for example, this is under construction right now, and you can see the footprint of the wind farm, and most of the wind farm is in the green area. That is remnant vegetation, forest. These are places that even primary producers can't touch, they can't clear. But wind farms, they can come in and clear it, destroy it without any reef regulations, no sediment control, no nothing. And you've got even turbines going there in that northern area into of concern vegetation. That is yellow. Yellow is indicative of concern. And this is it now. So I just photographed this just a couple of months ago, and as you can see, huge swathes cut through the forest. And material just pushed over the edge. This is the Lotus Creek Wind Farm, and this brings tears to my eyes. This should not be happening. This is bullshit. This is the best habitat for koalas left in Queensland. If you want to see koalas, head up there now and just park your vehicle on the dirt road there that runs over that range from just west of St. Lawrence on the coast. It's 400 metres elevation. It's quite cool, wonderful forest, and you'll see koalas there. And in actual fact, the ecology report found 101 koalas in this project area, 38 or so females with cubs on their back, and there was 138 greater gliders in this project area. The photograph on that's a Google Earth map on the left, and I've put the overlay of the road. The black dots are where the turbines are going, and then I took the drone up and replicated it, and you can see there. So basically all the tops of those ridge lines and hills right off into the distance will be blasted out. I'm just really pissed off. It's bullshit. Boomer Range, again, we've got turbines going to of concern vegetation. All that white area is cleared. That's all cleared land. And we thought with this transition that the renewables would be going into cleared and degraded land. They are not. They're going into all the best bits of forest that are left in this state. The best photograph of greater gliders I've ever taken in my life were on the Boomer Range wind farm site. So just going back to these 95 projects, there's 88 here, but I know there's about 95. I've got to update the spreadsheet. Why do we need so many wind farms? Why? It's because of the capacity factor. We don't have any wind in Queensland. So the wind turbines need to go up to the top, onto the top of the hills where there's some sort of wind. And they only run at 15 to 35% capacity factor. So we need to overbuild. We need to build shitloads of wind farms to try to create any meaningful electricity generation in this state. So here in Queensland, we peak out at about 10,000 megawatts, which is 10 gigawatts. And we'll need to times those 95 projects by at least 2 to 3 times to try to replace our thermal coal power plants. If we do a breakdown, we're looking at around 200,000 hectares of forest, remnant forest, to be impacted upon. That's considering the edge effects of all the roads. There's going to be 4,600 kilometres of new haulage roads punched into mostly remnant forests of Queensland. And then the edge effects of that is extraordinary. So going back, why do we need so many wind farms and renewables? This graph tells a story. So I started this presentation with the Mount Emerald wind farm, and this is the energy generation for Mount Emerald wind farm for the year 2022. So for the entire year of 2022. So you can really easily see that for well over 100 days, it generated less than 10 megawatts of power. This is why we need so many wind farms, because they don't run at full capacity. When politicians and proponents say that a wind farm can power 100,000 homes, divide it by 10. In Mount Emerald's case, divide it by 18. So Mount Emerald is running at 18.1% capacity factor. So for the year 2022, Mount Emerald wind farm delivered 0% of electricity for 63 days cumulatively. And then when we look at hydrogen, that just completely blows my brain. This is just one project of 3 along the WA coast. This covers 50,000 hectares, 700 turbines, 10,000 hectares of solar. that grey area is the solar on that photograph or the air photo on the right. And then the dredging out of a deep water port, it's complete delusion. And this is one of three. And we want to do this in Queensland. And the Gladstone Port Authority released a presentation recently where they're envisaging 10,000 turbines west of Gladstone for the creation of hydrogen. If this Murchison hydrogen project goes ahead, well, those turbines will be along the horizon in this photograph. So my thoughts are, should we be clearing and fragmenting forests for renewables? Are we going down the wrong path that has failed elsewhere? Where is our model for 100% renewables, and which countries are carbon free? So hopefully this presentation has opened up your eyes with what's required for the decarbonisation of this state. I've learnt that it's 100% renewables is a complete delusion. So anyway, food for thought, and thanks for watching, and see you next time. Thank you.